Hello, and welcome to another Angry unit of the week. And today we're taking a look at the Hafiz. So the Spike ATGM is a rather widespread ATGM and used by Israelis, but also by a lot of other countries. They've managed to export it a lot. And there's a whole heap of variations of the Spike ATGM, from infantry to helicopter based. However, the one we want to talk about has a little bit of mystery to it. During the 1973 Yom Kippur War, Israeli tankers took some rather heavy casualties, when the main threat were Arab ATGMs, the classic ATGM in a briefcase with a Maulut. And so in the early 80s, they'd end up entering into service the Spike NLOS. Now the NLOS has a pretty interesting history because it is shrouded by a lot of mystery, but there is reason to believe that it is heavily inspired from the American Fog M missile. The reason being is that during the 70s and 80s, Israelis and Americans were pretty tight in regards to military tech and spending, and were sharing a lot of information with each other. And both missiles look pretty similar, and both act rather similar. How it works is that it's controlled in a first-person view using a camera and guided by a joystick from the missile operator. It is connected from an 8-kilometer spool of fiber optic cable. After the missile passes 8 kilometers, the cable breaks off, and the rest of the guidance is guided through a radio link, which does mean it's susceptible to jamming from that point. There is limited combat data on the actual effective use of the Spike NLOS. It's been shrouded in secrecy since its entry into service in '81. And also, it wasn't even publicly disclosed to the public that the thing even existed till 2011. In-game, the Hafiz is an 80-point ATGM vehicle belonging to the Israelis, and it has a single weapon. And that weapon being the Spike NLOS, with 12 of these ATGMs available, with a range of ground of basically 3 kilometers, 50% accuracy, 40% while moving, 27 AP, and a rather decent reload time of 20 seconds. It's a powerful, long range, and somewhat accurate ATGM, and you get a lot of them as well. Up down to the miscellaneous stats, it has 2 frontal armor, 2 side armor, 1 back armor, and 1 top armor. 10 HP, medium size, poor optics, a speed of 65 kilometers off-road, 110 on the road, poor stealth, an autonomy of 480 kilometers. It is a prototype unit, and it is only available in mechanized and armored decks. So vehicles in the vehicle tab always get a rather poor reputation. They're either some cheap spam unit to pretty much act as a light tank or infantry support weapon, and then you have all the vehicle based ATGMs, which in wargame sense just suck. The reason being is that they have pretty poor stealth compared to infantry ATGMs. Even though it's a vehicle, they usually die somewhat quicker compared to infantry ATGMs in buildings, and then usually they're pretty easy to counter. However, there are a few ATGM vehicles which do stand out, and the Hafiz is definitely one of them. It does have a hefty price tag of 80 points, but its main advantage compared to all the other vehicle-based ATGMs is that extreme long range. Because the extra 200 or meters so, compared to some of the more other top-end ATGMs, really gives it a good amount of staying power. Not so much of it staying on the battlefield, but the enemy tanks staying array, so they can't get close enough to shoot it. And with its high ATGM pool and relatively decent accuracy, it's not as good as the Pereire, but the Pereire is 30 more points, it has a bit of extra frontal armor, and also a little bit more accurate. But 110 points is really starting to push it for a specialized ATGM vehicle, when you can just start buying actual tanks or decent heavy tanks for that price. The availability is also pretty good. You get 4 per card and 2 cards of each vehicle, so frankly you probably only ever need 1, because this is still a specialized niche unit, mainly used for just locking down wide open areas. You can theoretically use it on the offense, it has pretty damn good stabilization, but once again, 2 frontal armor, if it gets shot at by anything, it's just going to die. You want to keep it as far back as humanly possible, and then try to relocate it after every few shots. Overall, the Hafiz is a pretty decent ATGM vehicle. It's one of the few in the vehicle tab which are actually worthwhile, and that 3 kilometer range is nuts. You can just zone out entire sections of the map very easily and get some rather surprising kills if you know where to place it. And well, I'm going to leave it off at that. This has been another Angry Rouge Unit of the Week. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And usual, please just take it easy.